Hello everyone and welcome back to the Grand Chess Tour. The 3 days of Rapid are over, and after 3 days of Rapid, Magnus Carlsen emerged victorious, but still we have 2 days of Blitz left, and in those 2 days of Blitz everyone can still grab at least 18 points since it's a double round robin now. One Blitz game, if you win it you get 1 point. So here, a very nice game, Magnus versus Ding again, but now it's the Blitz section, so let's see what happens. Carlsen with the white pieces opens with e4. Sorry about that, and sorry about if you hear some drilling in the background. My neighbors are drilling something, so that's just that. There's no way around it. But okay, with e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, so far everything the same as in their rapid game. With bishop to b5, the Ruy Lopez is on the board, a6, Morphy's defense, bishop to a4, and knight to f6. Now, will we see another martial attack, and if Ding prepared something for Carlsen other than just flying into Carlsen's preparation with that bishop captures on d5. Magnus castles with bishop to e7, everything the same, but now not rook e1 and going for, well, inviting Ding into a second martial attack game, but here Magnus just captures on c6. And okay, we have d captures on c6. This is one of the lines where it's better to go with the unprincipled capturing, not towards the center. I know you will always have to capture towards the center to help out with, for example, this central thrust. But here, for example, if b captures, then white can capture on e5. So that's not really great. After knight captures, you have rook e1, and black might run into some trouble. So this is never played. So here we have d captures, and now the point is that if knight captures, then you're welcome to capture, and now if rook e1, now the queen has access to d4, queen d4 defends the knight, and also you weakened your f2 pawn. So that's why d captures on c6 is to be preferred here. We have d3 by Magnus, and now knight to d7. Ding makes room for the f pawn with knight bd2 and castles by Ding. a4, preparing to grab more space with a5, and here their rook to e8 and c5 are known moves, but here Ding goes for a5, preventing white from pushing a5, also stopping b4, and well, it is as of move 9 that we have a completely new game. So it would seem this time Ding surprised Magnus. Okay, we have b3. Magnus prepares to fianchetto the dark square bishop, and now f6. Is this one of the positions where it's actually okay to play f6? We'll see, but it does strengthen the center, and now this knight is free to roam around. We have knight to h4 by Magnus. Now the f5 square is excellent. If you wish to kick it away from there, you're going to have to further weaken your king side with the g6, let's say. Knight to c5, preparing to go to e6 with the knight, and now knight to f5. And here, like I said, you either have to give up the light square bishop or further weaken your king. So for the moment, the Ding not interested in either. We have knight to e6. Now you can go to d4 or f4 if needed, and now knight to c4 by Magnus. A lot of horsing around, but it does prevent ideas like b5, because after captures your a5 pawn would hang, and also it does put pressure on the center of the board. It's a very nice outpost for the knight. So here b6 by Ding, and now knight captures on e7, eliminating one of the bishops, and now the other knight will take the place of this guy on f5. Queen captures on e7, and now knight to e3 by Magnus. And now Ding doesn't allow it. Now g6, it was needed to further weaken the king side. Bishop to b2, developing the dark square bishop, and now c5, with grabbing more control of the d4 square. Maybe knight to d4 will be an idea in the future. And queen to d2 now by Magnus, connecting rooks. Now the other rook can join the game as well. Bishop to b7, now Ding connects rooks as well. And rook 8 to e1 by Magnus. We have rook 8 to d8. A nice semi-open file for Ding's rook, and here f3. F4 would be a bit too early, as black has complete control of the f4 square, but if you look at the position now, basically the only two breakthroughs in the position are f5 and f4. It's hard to say who will be able to push what, but here I caught a glimpse of an interview with Ding after the game, and here Ding said that he thought that if he just waited, then it would be Magnus who would break through on the king side, and he would have to suffer. So here Ding plays a brilliant maneuver, one you would expect in a classical game by, I don't know, Tigran Petrosian or something. Here Ding plays king to f7, and it's just a beautiful move. And Ding's idea is that his king is too vulnerable on the king side. So Ding wants to play king f7 to e8 to d7 to c8, and maybe even get it to b8 to be completely safe there, because there are no good breakthroughs for white on the queen side. So king to f7, Ding starts the king march. With queen to f2, Magnus wants to get the queen into the attack, but king e8. With queen to h4 by Magnus, king to d7 now. And here, Ding also almost escaped with the king, so Magnus tries to bust open the position while Ding's king is still in the center of the board. Knight captures on f4, and here Magnus decides to give up the exchange. Rook captures on f4, we have e captures, and now not queen captures to allow f5. It's a very a dangerous position for white if the f-file opens up. Also, you don't get anything by e captures, and you don't get any discoveries because the rook on e1 is unguarded, so not something you want to do. And also after this, something like knight d5, yes, the rook is now protected, but it's black who will be better after bishop captures. Pawn captures, just move the queen. There is no attack, the king will safely hide, for example on b7, and you're still down the exchange. So Magnus goes knight to g4 with a triple attack on the f6 pawn. Now g5 by Ding, and queen to h6. Now this pawn will fall. It's not all that easy to guard it. f5 might be an idea, but that just opens up way too many lines. You still allow the piece to go to f6. So here, queen to e6. Ding finds a very interesting idea. He forces the knight to capture because the knight is now under attack. We have knight captures with check, so king to c8. It's where Ding wanted to go either way, so one little check doesn't bother him. And here, Magnus now is down the exchange, and Ding's king is very safe. Magnus has to be very careful here. Ideas like rook to f1 are possible, so to prevent the g4, the f4 pawn would be very vulnerable. Or here, Magnus could even try Ding's own idea and try to run his king over to the queen side as well. But Magnus plays queen captures on g5. He's not afraid of the g file, although it's a very dangerous idea to capture this pawn. And Ding shows it immediately. He doesn't even bother to bring another attacker into the game with rook d6 to force the knight back. He just pushes f3 right away. And now you cannot capture because rook g3, rook g8 just wins the queen. After one rook is captured, the other rook takes its place. So here we have rook to f1 by Magnus, but now rook to g8, giving back the exchange. But now the rook will wreak havoc along the g file. Knight captures on g8, rook. That's not a rook. Rook captures on g8, and now. Well, obviously, you're going to lose the g2 pawn with check, most likely. Here, Magnus played queen to e5. Queen to e5 is seemingly the same as queen to f6, but not really. Queen to f6 is much better, well, for the simple reason that it doesn't allow the black queen to join the attack. So here, we would just see captures, and after the rook eliminates the g2 pawn, king h1, rook captures on c2, you would capture on f3, and the game continues. Black is better, of course, but still. The game continues. However, Magnus played queen to e5 here, probably with the idea that after queen captures, bishop captures, the bishop will have an easier way of maybe joining the defense. However, here Ding doesn't have to trade queens, and of course he doesn't. He plays rook captures on g2 with check, king h1, and now queen to g6, and now it's very dangerous. So, what do you do here? For example, if you try something like queen to f5 check to trade the queens, it's not possible. Just queen captures, pawn captures, and f2 wins the game now because you've opened up the bishop's diagonal. Now everything, like rook g1 is mate, as it's a double check from the rook and from the bishop. So here Magnus played h4. He created some space for his king if needed, but now bishop to c6. Just a safety move, guarding e8, also creating a square for his king on b7 if needed. Magnus played queen to f4. He wants to eliminate the f3 pawn, but now rook captures on c2. We have, well, now queen to g2 is the threat of mate, so rook to g1 is played, but now rook back to g2 by Ding, now threatening rook captures on g1, and also you don't really have a good move here. Just rook captures on g1 is the threat. You can't really do anything. So here Magnus defended with queen to e3, now guarding the g1 square, but now it's all over. So feel free to pause the video and try to find the quickest way to victory for Ding in this position, while I give you a couple of seconds. For those of you who were able to do it, congratulations on finding a forced mate in 2. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it's queen to g3. And now there's nothing you can do. If you capture the rook, we already mentioned that this is just mate. If you don't do it, there's no way to even prolong. Queen h4 is mate, queen h3 is mate. Even if bishop e5 to try and prolong, it doesn't work. Now rook h2 is mate, so after queen to g3, Magnus resigned, and this is the first loss for Magnus after 3 days of Rapid, and this is like the first day of Blitz, and this is the first loss he suffered in the National Library of India. So great revenge by Ding. We'll see. The two of them will play one more game where Ding will have the white pieces, so we'll see how it goes. So yeah, that's the game. I do hope you enjoyed it. I've seen a lot more wild games have been played, so we do have our work cut out for us today. But you know, feel free to use hashtag suggestion in the description below if there's a nice game I missed. But I will try to review them all, hopefully. I would also like to thank Stephen Green for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon. Continuing the coverage of the Tata Steel Blitz India edition. Checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and we are about to start our next big saga. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent start of your week.